Okay, so in my last video I spoke about how I had bought the baby girl that I just knew was out there, Earthside, and how it had just been this incredible, empowering birth, like basically a free birth just by myself, and that it had turned out to be a 20-minute labour, and how that had just absolutely brought this beautiful focus to my life, because previous to that my mind had just been racing. Everything felt, I just constantly felt uneasy and just depressed and gloomy because I didn't know what the future was now going to hold. I was worried about what the reality of splitting up with my husband was going to look like in terms of separating our lives and finding like a new living situation. But then I'd also been guided that I needed to just be patient and sort of not impose all this pressure on myself that I needed to work it out all right now, because even though there was, resentment and a bit of uncomfortableness, really things were pretty amicable between the children's father and myself. And if I wanted to actually make this gentle on my children, then trying to work out how to move out and get enough income to support myself wasn't going to be gentle on anybody. And so most of the time the kid's dad was just off at work, and so I had my own space, and so I knew that I just really had to focus on having this baby and just staying as calm as possible and just really seeing what was in front of me, which in any given present moment really wasn't unbearable. Most of the time everything is fine, just cohabitating, and the burden that had come off my shoulders from not knowing how to get out of the relationship had lifted. So emotionally I felt so much better, and I knew that I just had to focus on this baby and my boys. And so the synchronicities had continued with the whole twin flame journey, but a lot of that was just bringing like this sense of curiosity and wonder and delight at all of this unfolding. But of course it's just a constant battle, so my ego would keep trying to derail things for me, keep telling me there was a problem, keep telling me that I needed to work out how to move out, become independent, get this guy to come back. But then I would just try to realign myself, and the signs and synchronicities would continue. And so yeah, the process was just playing out, and just unfolding in like the perfect timing. For all the information that has needed to come in through this journey has just come in at the right time, that it would sort of make sense to me, and be able to actually be properly integrated. So I was learning to just trust it and play with it, keep asking the universe, okay, what do I need to know? What do I need to know? Without, trying to not then cling to that. Whatever advice had come, I wasn't doing it I was trying not to take it in a way that made me cling to an outcome. It was just, okay, that's really fascinating and meaningful to me, but the main point of this whole journey is my awakening, not to end up with him. And I may never end up with him like in terms of physical union between two humans, or two human minds, but that doesn't matter. That's totally irrelevant to any of this. The reaction has been catalyzed now, and the process is now unfolding, and that's just my focus. But of course part of that process is the ego coming in and obsessing over him and wanting him and clinging to that attachment of an outcome. and just projecting like all my hopes and dreams onto this dude who I really don't even know that well in terms of like he's human, and just making me believe like in an illusion. And so I'd had my baby girl. I had her on the 9th of December 2021, and so we'd had Christmas, and then it was New Year's Eve, and the children's father took the boys up north to stay with his parents over New Year. And so it was New Year's Eve, and I was there just with my baby girl, just enjoying it. But then all this grief hit me, just thinking about the year that had been, and I got overwhelmed, absolutely just missing him. And so in that moment of grief, I just found myself looking at, he has videos up of him playing guitar, and I promised myself that I wouldn't, but I gave up, I gave in, and I was just sitting there crying and watching these videos of him playing guitar. And I'd really only watched these videos once or twice before, but I hadn't noticed something, and this time it just stood out at me. And so basically I, many years ago, I got this book called Code to Joy, and it's like a neural rewiring process to overcome limiting beliefs. And one of the steps of this process is to come up with your own personal symbol of balance. And automatically the symbol of balance that came to my mind was a pile of rocks balancing. And then from then on, I kind of kept that as a symbol that I come back to in my mind, to remind me to just breathe and come into my body. And because I'd had this symbol, I'd been at the shops, and I just saw this picture that had like a Buddha. It was just one of those printed canvas thingies with like a Buddha and some lilac, which lilac is one of my favorite things, and some Epsom salts, which also was meaningful to me in terms of remembering to balance my minerals. And it had the picture of the rocks balancing, and so I just grabbed this canvas and hung it up in my room just as that kind of reminder to keep myself in balance. And so it's hung in my room, this picture with this pile of rocks balancing. And as I was sitting there watching this video of him and just again questioning, like my ego is just questioning, how could all this be happening if he's not the one for me, and if we're not supposed to end up together, and all this, and and I just suddenly noticed in the background of what appears to be his bedroom, he had hanging up some printed pictures of a pile of rocks balancing. And I was just dumbstruck. Like, I was just like, when are these synchronicities gonna stop? How insane can this actually get? Like, what is the likelihood of this dude having the same, like that symbol, the same symbol of balance that is my personal symbol of balance that I have hanging up in my room? How can he have that? How can this be real? How can this be going on? Like, it was like getting to this point where every time I thought there cannot be anything else, like this has to stop, everything that has occurred so far feels like it's impossible. And so it was like the probability of this continuing, it shouldn't have, it couldn't have, and yet it was. It was almost like by me going, no, this is impossible, it was like the universe was like, I accept that challenge, I'm gonna keep throwing stuff at you. So I was so blown away. But I again remembered, okay, all this is going to keep coming and it's going to keep making me feel like, oh, he's the one for me and what an epic love story. But I've got to detach. The point of all of this is to test me. Can I detach? Despite all of this, despite this incredible storyline drawing me in, can I just let it go and go, okay, the main thing is my spiritual evolution, and to have a spiritual awakening and to be able to access that state of complete fulfillment through just being completely present in the present moment is so much grander than any earthly relationship could ever be. So I was determined, like, no, I'm not going to let this derail me. I want to come home to myself, and this is what all of this incredible, beautiful stuff is doing for me. And it's also showing me like the divine connected nature of the universe in ways that I guess I believed could happen, but I didn't think would ever happen to me. I did not think I would ever experience this level of like magic and metaphysical sort of phenomenon. It was like the little messages from fairies that I'd always wished for when I was a girl. I was experiencing them. And so being New Year's Eve and having that experience and just going, no, I'm so much more determined to just let him go. So that night I lit a candle and wrote out a little message to him, much like I'd done for my daughter, where I let him know that I would love him no matter what. I would love him eternally, and that it didn't matter whether he was in my life as a human or not, and that if he ever chose to be, that of course I would love that, but that I'm completely whole in myself and that it doesn't really change anything. And then I release him, and I release the outcome of wanting to be with him in the flesh, or even like an online long distance relationship, basically between two human minds. On the level of the body and the mind, I release him, and I know that he's just me. So I know that there is no separation anyway. And just a thank you for opening all of this up to me and being the catalyst for this incredible reaction, all this growth and evolution. And so I played the song Crystal and just had a big cry, and I burnt this letter, just really with the intention of letting him go with just so much love and gratitude, and then just coming back into myself and going, I'm not really releasing anything, just the illusion, because what I think is out there is actually in here. And so then I just sat quietly and just got in touch with that place. But as part of this, I also didn't want to misinterpret the teachings, that I needed to get rid of any particular feelings, more just to detach from a storyline. And so I started, I'd been doing something called Lojong practice, where you basically breathe in pain and suffering, and then you breathe out like love and lightness, and just space. It's kind of like you're transmuting stuck energy, I guess. And you start off doing the practice by sending love to people that it's easy to cultivate compassion and love for. So, you know, your children and your friends and everything. And then you'll move that up to more just like acquaintances, and then people out there that you don't even know. And then the ultimate practice is then onto your enemies, those who it is the most hard to have unconditional love for. And so doing this practice, I had visualized my children, sent them love, and then I moved on to visualizing him and just sending him love without, like, unconditional love, not wanting anything in return, but not denying my feelings that I did care about him. And so this was just kind of my way of continuing just to move through those feelings and just allow them without really acting on them. And so I was lying there that night doing this Lojong practice, and I'd visualized my children, and it's kind of like I bring in that image of my children in a way that my mind wants to visualize it. And like I'll just think of maybe the last time I saw them, or a photo that I have of them or something. But I moved on and went to think about him. And so I would have gone to just visualize, like, maybe the image of him playing guitar in his room or something. But as I went to visualize him, an image came into my mind that I wasn't expecting. And it was an image of him as a little boy. Like, I just knew it was him. And he had his knees like up to his chest and was burying his head down in his knees as if he was alone and just like depressed and heartbroken. And then I became aware that on one side of him was his mum, kind of just kneeling down beside him, and she just had one arm around him with like her hand, from behind it, her hand on his shoulder, on one sort of like the top of his arm, and then she was just kind of leaning her head into his other shoulder. And then on the other side of him was his nan, and she had her hand on his shoulder, near where his mum was leaning her head. And then she was sort of from like beside but behind him, and then she had one hand on his forehead. I guess I felt like that was it was like the way somebody might hold somebody who is in grief. And I realized that he wasn't aware of them. He wasn't, this little child version of him had no idea that they were right there and that they were holding him. And he just thought he was completely alone. But it was like his mum and his nan were just focusing all their presence like right on him, and like so concentrated. And then his mum, like, she also had one hand slid down and just like over his heart, and she was sending like this golden light down, as if she was kind of directing this healing golden energy into his heart and also his stomach, where she kind of it was like I just knew that that was where he was holding a lot of anxieties. And so then around them was like these concentric circles, these circles of like light beings holding hands, and I wasn't sure, I mean, I just felt like they were kind of guides and ancestors and angels and spirits, light beings, and it was like they were all there just as well, like with 100% of their focus and presence in on him, that he was so like so protected and loved. Yeah, and so what I could see was 2 rings of them, but then I knew, even though I couldn't see them, somehow I knew that then there was almost like infinite circles around that of more and more and more beings, but they weren't sort of visible. And so seeing that, it was just like so beautiful and moving and touching that like I just burst into tears. And then I became aware of, as if like that was an image that I was being shown, and then I saw his mother in front of that, as if that was her spirit communicating to me. Like she was showing me how surrounded and protected he was, and connected. And then she was there at the front, like just surrounded by this incredible, like just the brightest, like light gold light. And it was like she had come then to communicate to me. And all she really said was, it was like she kind of downloaded this information over to me, but then I heard the words really clearly give him the message, and then she just disappeared. And I was like, what message? I don't know. Am I supposed to just tell him the image? Or like I felt as if it was incomplete. Like I'd felt when she said that there was about to be a particular message. And there just wasn't. And so I felt really confused. And then I thought, I don't know whether, like, did my mind just make that up? And I was like, I don't want to reach out to him and try and tell him that, like, his mother's contacted me, because I felt like that would be the most, like, cheesy, like, cheap way. It felt like it would be, like, a really dumb way to try and, like, emotionally manipulate somebody. And that got to my ego, because it was like, no, I am smarter than that. I wouldn't try something like that, but that's what it's going to look like. And so I was like, well, I'm not going to do that. But I was really moved by, like, what I'd seen, and I did start to have this really strong sense that I did need to tell him about it. And as if, like, that was what I was being guided to do. But I did not want to reach out to him in that way. But yeah, now I see that that's all just been part of this journey. Like, my ego has to suffer. My ego has to get over itself and just do what I'm guided to do, even if it makes me look like, you know, a way that I don't want to be, I don't want to be seen as. And so, but I'd kind of decided that of course I wasn't going to bloody reach out to him and tell him that. But then a week went by, and I kept thinking about it. And again, it was kind of bugging me, because it was like, it just felt incomplete. So I felt like I was waiting on something, but I didn't know what. And I kind of kept questioning, almost like to her, what is this message? I don't get it. What is the message? And I'd been continuing to listen to that Ram Dass track, and just also continuing to have that weird sensation like I can feel what old mate Pete Murray is feeling, and sort of like what he's thinking. And then I was just scrolling through Facebook one day and this ad came up. So this was like a week after since I had that that sort of strange visual and like message from his mother, or incomplete message, and I was just scrolling through, and then like Facebook is just so full of ads now, and I don't click on those ads. I just scroll past, get the shits that it's full of ads. But this one day, out of nowhere, I just I didn't even think about what I was doing. I just clicked on this ad, and then it opens up and this website, and I'm there looking at it and just kind of going, why am I here? I don't know. And it was just children's books, and I have more than enough children's books. I don't want any children's books. But I was looking at this page and these children's books, and it was these conscious stories to sort of teach children spiritual lessons, I guess. And so I'm looking at it and just going, I don't know why I'm here. And I'd sort of just mindlessly scrolled down, and they had about, I don't know, 30 books or something like that, maybe more. And it was just showing the front covers of all these little books. And then I went to just close the window, and just before I clicked on the cross, suddenly my eyes just focused in, zeroed in on this one book. And you see, during that week I was like contemplating, well, what is the message? Is it just to tell him about what I saw? And I'd been thinking, maybe I can just draw it and just say, I don't know, but this is what I saw. And so, you know, it was him in the middle, and then these two concentric circles of light beings, like spirits, guides around him. And so I zero in on this one book, and the image is basically that, but then it's got, instead of him and the mother and the nan figure around him, it's got a fire. And I was kind of like, that also seems strange and connected to my experience of constantly listening to sit around the fire. And so I click on this book just to see, you know, what it's about, because I felt like it might give me more information, more clues. And so it's this book about so it's about this town where the square people live, and they do everything in squares, and then this visitor comes from a village where they are circle people, and they do everything in circles together. And it says in that town, everything is done in circles, where you get close enough to rest heads on shoulders, and his mother was resting her head on his shoulder. Feel each other's heartbeat, her hand was on his heart, and never feel lonely. And then Bubba's just waking up. So, where was I? Yeah, so that's what this book is about. So yeah, it's in this circle town, people get close enough to rest heads on shoulders and feel each other's heartbeat and never feel lonely. And then in this book, the fire melts the pointy edges of the square people until they're free to connect together in a circle around the fire. And so that was like a crazy connection to what she'd shown me. And so I just felt like that was the message that she wanted me to send to him. And at first I thought, oh, like, I don't know, do I send him this children's book to this, you know, fully grown bloke? But then I realised, okay, I think it's like, it's not meant to go exactly to the bloke, it's supposed to talk to his inner child. So even if he thinks, why are you sending me this? Perhaps the inner child in him will respond kind of deeper down. And it kind of just felt like the same message that was coming into me about like this illusion of separation. His inner child needed to realize that when his mother and his nan passed away, that even though he thought they were gone, that they were right there, and they have not left his side since. Not at all. It's like that line, and God was with me through my every heartbeat, and they have been there, and they're still there with him through his every single heartbeat. But you know, that hurting inner child within him didn't realize that, and thought that he'd been abandoned. And I mean, they say that, you know, the loss of your mother as a child is kind of like psychologically one of the worst things that you can possibly go through. So I mean, I can understand why. He, his inner child, why that child would feel as if they'd been abandoned and were now alone, and would get hurt by love. But I still didn't want to reach out and tell him. And also, like, I really don't believe the whole idea that we're supposed to work on our twin and fix them and help them heal and everything. Like, we don't need to do anything. But retrospectively, I feel like this was more coming to me as a challenge to like overcome my own egoic, my own ego, because I would feel stupid saying this stuff to him. Like, part of me didn't know whether it was real, because that's what my ego does. It comes in and questions, is this just made up in my mind? And also, like, yeah, it would, to me, it would just look like a really cheap way to try and get my way back into his life. So it was really like the last thing I wanted to do. And so I kind of, I just kept saying to her, like, no, don't make me do that. No, ask somebody else. Please show somebody else the message, or just come to him in a dream or something, but don't ask me to put it past that message along. I don't want to do it. No, thank you. And then over the next couple of months, I started having a lot of like throat chakra type symptoms. So like I started getting aching teeth, like really sensitive teeth. I started getting like an itchy cough. I just kept randomly getting sunburnt on my neck, even when I didn't feel like I had had that much sun exposure. And then I also got like a really sore neck, to the point, like I've had sore necks like over the years from breastfeeding children, co-sleeping all night, but this was like worse than it had ever been, and I hadn't had a sore neck for like a very long time, and it just came on, and it was like to the point I couldn't even turn my head. It got so bad. So all that stuff was happening, and I have a little like frequency scanning device called a Healy, and so I ran a scan on myself, and the top thing that it came up with was, this person is not expressing themes of the throat chakra, like kind of like she's not communicating something that she knows that she should communicate. And I was like, oh, you got me. And so I knew that if I wanted to overcome all these symptoms, that I would have to reach out and tell him, as much as I did not want to do that. But just to continue the synchronicities and everything that were occurring up until that point, later when I finally reached out. So I had been sitting there just wondering, like feeling really insecure again about myself, and just wondering, would anybody ever love a single mother with all these children that come along with any kind of like committed sort of relationship? Like, would I ever find that kind of love? And just after I'd been thinking about that, this post comes up on Facebook from a woman called Constance Hall, who is like an Australian woman who, I guess she got famous from being on that stupid reality TV show Big Brother. But then since then she's written this beautiful book which just kind of unites women, so that we're not, there's been so much in our culture that just sort of pitches us against one another, so that it's always like it's this competition. And she's just like, no, every single one of you are queens, no matter how you choose to parent. So let's just all support each other and like actually be on each other's side. And so she had been with this man, Bill, and then her marriage was breaking up, and this post came up, which was her sharing a memory of when she had met the man who she then entered into a relationship. Basically, like, she met him while she was still married to this other Bill guy, but then ended that marriage and started seeing this guy Denham, who originally she'd met and had just been good mates with, like had sort of hit it off with, but just as friends. And people had given her a really hard time once she announced that they were now together, because people were like, oh, you have no respect for your marriage, you just ran off with another guy, it was too soon. And the thing was that he was a single dad with 2 boys, and his boys, like, they'd lost their mum. In this particular case, their mum had killed herself. And so he had gone on the road taking these boys around to like skating competitions, and just being this awesome unschooling dad who just devoted himself to kind of being there with these boys and really like taking care, like nurturing their mental health and well-being. And so so meanwhile, Constance has these other children from this marriage, and I even think she had 3 children, and that one of them was actually called, 4 children, and one of them actually has the same name as my son. And so there was this parallel again, as if like exactly what I'd been contemplating in my own life had come up, just perfectly mirrored through this post. And as if, and that it had come in right on that day, once again, as if the universe was just bringing me this information to answer my question. Would anybody ever enter into a committed relationship with a single mum with these small children? And like, the situation almost mirrored old Pete Murray and I, like this single dad, 2 like teen sort of boys who hadn't really had a mother, and with this like unschooling kind of dad, and then this woman with these small children whose marriage was falling apart, and they had ended up getting together. And this bloke Denham had even had the son's name, who was like same name as my son, tattooed on his arm, just to like show this boy how much he accepted him as a son. And then somebody I knew had commented on this post and just said, wow, he's like a real life Captain Fantastic. And she'd said that it was just this incredible movie that all people should watch, and particularly like homeschoolers. And I found that it was available free to watch just on like SBS. So I sat and watched this movie, and it's about this this homeschooling dad who his wife killed herself, and so having to tell all these children that mum's dead, and watching the grief come over these children. And that just, again, like, I lost it crying at that scene, because it seemed like such a parallel to what old mate Pete Murray would have gone through as a child, with all of his siblings learning that their mother was gone. And then the whole thing, like, he knows about the like elitist control and the absolute corruption of the government and everything, and so he is just adamant to keep his children out of that system and give them, like, train them in all the skills and tools that they need to just be really like self-sufficient, and to have kind of like the knowledge to stay out of that system and live their own vibrant lives. And then instead of celebrating Christmas Day, they celebrate Noam Chomsky Day, who, I mean, I don't fully really trust Noam Chomsky. I love many of his quotes, and they're very pertinent to the times, but I still feel like he's somehow this, he's been brainwashed by the system that in many ways he's fighting against, but it just feels like he is like an academic who has been manipulated by certain dark, false academia that's manipulated his thinking to not actually align with the full truth. But yeah, for the theme of this movie to be basically about all the stuff really that I bond so strongly and have such like core beliefs around, that I share with old mate Pete Murray, again, it was just another parallel. And like another parallel was that because this father is keeping his kids out of the system and everything, other relatives have threatened to have the children removed from him. And so he's kind of, part of it is there's a struggle with the kids kind of being removed, and that just mirrors also what old mate Pete Murray has gone through. And then also a scene where this son professes his love to this girl that he's just like made out with or something for one night, and that just seemed to parallel my stupid love confession to him. So yeah, just again, like this really strong mirror. And there's this scene where he says, like the father, Captain Fantastic, says, "We can't go to Mummy's funeral, we have to do what we're told. Some fights you can't win. The powerful control the lives of the powerless. That's the way the world works. It's unjust and it's unfair, but that's just too darn bad. And we have to shut up and accept it." And that mirrored exactly what was going on in the world at the moment with all these lockdowns. Like, my grandmother died and I wasn't allowed to go to her funeral because we weren't able to travel to it, and they wouldn't have allowed that many people at the funeral anyway. And so people were missing out on this massive, like, important closure and rite of passage of saying goodbye to their loved ones. And so that again was like a mirror to the times. And then the Noam Chomsky quote is, "If you assume that there is no hope, you guarantee that there will be no hope. If you assume that there is an instinct for freedom, that there are opportunities to change things, then there is that possibility that you can contribute to making a better world." And that was just such a beautiful message to hear, while all this madness was going on with these lockdowns and this looming like social credit system.
What we created here may be unique in all of human existence.
All the way to the top.
We created paradise.
What we're doing out here is so incredible. Our kids are amazing.
It was small.
Mom needs to be in the hospital right now. How's she doing? We're a family.
This is your fault.
Leslie had a disease.
Wherever you are, stay there. You show up, I will have you arrested.
We can't go to Mommy's funeral. We have to do what we're told.
We want to see Mom. Grandpa can't impress us.
Some say love. Right now, this is your first real test. Remember your training.
They have hot dogs.
What's cola?
Poison water.
Well, I'm so happy that our family is together. It's all local and organic.
How did you kill those chickens? With an axe or a knife?
There's the rotisserie chicken, so you buy it on, it's already dead.
The kids need structure. They need to go to a real school.
I sincerely hope you haven't been doing what I think you've been doing.
Your daughter has taught me many things just now. Will you be my wife?
Broke my heart with sticks.
Unless it comes out of a book, I don't know anything!
Swore I'm never.
Even if they make it through whatever it is you're doing to them, they're going to be totally unprepared for the real world.
And I happen to think the opposite is true.
It's child abuse.
That almost hit me.
If I wanted to hit you, I would have hit you.
If there is a line, I'll
Hello, Grandpa.
Abby and I have decided that we're going to file for custody of the children.
coming back.
Will they take us away from you?
That's a possibility. Our children shall be philosopher kings. Makes me so indescribably happy.
The other thing that I just forgot to mention was that before I had found this conscious parenting book about, you know, the circle and the square people, I had been really sort of looking at myself and wondering why it was that I couldn't seem to attract love in my life and keep love, I guess. And I'd run this Healy scan on myself, and the thing that it came up with was the person is not open to receive. And it said, like, the person needs to learn to give and receive. And so it actually hit me really hard, to the point where I kind of had this this outburst of tears and like release that rung so true for me. I hadn't realized it, but it is a major problem, that I just don't think I am really actually open to receiving beautiful things like love and support and help and all these kinds of things. And then at that point I was also kind of I just kept intuitively picking up that old mate Pete Murray had exactly the same issue. And so then to see that particular book, it felt like that was kind of just confirming that we're both being square people and not circle people. And learning to open up and connect with others and be held and supported and intimate with others. And so that whole sort of theme continued, and I really started to open up to a whole lot more sort of lessons about my own wounds, and just this stuff started to come like to light, to conscious awareness. So I'm going to talk about how that all continues to unfold in the next video with more sort of signs and synchronicities from the universe.